Welcome, students, to my lecture on formalist analysis writing. So far in this course, we've learned how to construct arguments. You've learned how to construct arguments using models number 1, number 2, and number 3. You've learned how to create points that are specific, singular, and distinct, and how to create opposition and diffuse that opposition. You've also learned how to create research papers, persuasive research papers, again, presenting your ideas and dealing with scholarly opposition and diffusing that opposition. Now we're going to, in this section of the course, in this lecture, I'd like to concentrate on how we analyze other people's arguments. The best way to do that is to use what's called a formalist approach, And in the document that I've posted for you online, which you see on the screen right now, I've got the document divided into 3 sections. The first section that you see on the screen right now is the 7 categories of questions for reading. The second section, which we'll just scroll down to here, is the section on how to apply the 7 categories in your writing. And the final section at the end is a diagram illustrating the basic structure of a formalist analysis. Now, that's just sort of an overview of the document. Let's go back to page 1 and we'll go through the document as a whole, explaining how it all works. And then I'll read for you 2 sample papers written by students that are outstanding examples of formalist analysis writing. So in other words, I'll give you the theory first, and then we'll give you the practice. And then we'll do some practicing of our own as we develop our skills and get ready for the in-class formalist essay and the final exam in this course, which is also a formalist essay. So that in-class paper that's coming up is worth 10%, and the final exam is worth 20. So these are important skills to learn. So let's go back to the opening page and just read the note to students. So the note to students here is very important about how we're going to use these questions. Excuse me. Note to students, whenever you encounter a nonfiction text or scholarly article, ask yourself the questions outlined below. Keep careful, specific notes. Be flexible, however, and don't feel compelled to answer every question in detail. Depending on the text, certain questions will inevitably be more relevant. Use these questions as thought starters. Then try to concisely summarize the author's purpose, point of view, structure, etc. Use this approach creatively, not mechanically. Okay? So, purpose, point of view. Notice here in purpose, all of the different questions that we have here. A, B, C, D, and E. Once we've gone through and just used those questions as thought starters, we're going to reduce our answer regarding purpose down to a single sentence or at the most 2 sentences. So if we take, for example, the essay that you're familiar with already, It's Easy But Wrong to Blame the Music, written by Hilary Rosen, let's think about these questions. What is the author's purpose in writing that essay? Is it to inform us, to persuade, to entertain? Is it all 3? Probably mostly to inform and persuade. What are the main ideas in her text? What tone of voice is resonating in the text? Is it detached, confident, unsure? I suggest to you that probably confident would be the best answer there. What is the author's thesis? Is it explicit, revealed in stages, or implicit? I think it's explicit. She argues very strongly music cannot cause action. What is the author's worldview? Is it discernible? Is there a belief system? Well, I'll leave that up to you to think about. Does she present ethics that imply a certain worldview? So after thinking about Hilary Rosen's essay and her purpose, you'd have to boil that down to a single sentence. What is it she's really arguing here? What is she arguing? What's the purpose of her writing? Secondly, regarding point of view, notice all the questions here. And let's think about Hilary Rosen again. What kind of author is presenting the text? Well, we know that she's the chief executive officer of the music industry. This is no minor detail. What degree of knowledge does the author have? Expert or an amateur? An authority speaking inside or outside of his or her area? Why should we trust or distrust the author? What are the author's credentials? Clearly, the author is an authority speaking inside her area of expertise. But why should we trust the author? What are the author's credentials? This essay, It's Easy But Wrong to Blame the Music, is written right after the Columbine massacre, the shootings, the terrible school shootings. She's under a lot of pressure to somehow calm down the people who are saying, you're responsible, you're publishing this violent music. These people that committed these crimes were under the influence of this, this violent music. Should we trust her? Is there any motive she might have for trying to get the music industry off the hook, so to speak? Be critical. Think about it. Don't just take it at face value. Is the text based on firsthand experience or the knowledge of other people? That's something to think about. Is the author biased in any sense? Are these really facts, or are they opinions or personal beliefs? Well, is she biased? We kind of touched on that. So it's your decision. What do you make of Hillary Rosen as far as the point of view goes? Now, structure. In your Little Brown Handbook, as we notice here, there's a whole section dealing with different types of structure. We also mentioned the 3 argument models that we've studied together, so think about that. A, B, C, and D, what pattern of organization? Is it a model 1, 2, or 3 argument? Is it cause and effect, comparison and contrast? I think in this case, we have an argument, but it's certainly cause and effect. That's what she's arguing. There can be, music cannot cause action. Is time significant? Is there a discernible correlation between structure and content? Is the text framed in some way? Now, all of these questions, as it says in the preliminary note, some will be more relevant to some texts than others. So use these questions about structure as thought starters. How does she partition the text? How does she structure it? How does she show cause and effect? How does she physically do that in the text as she's building it? And then boil it down. Now, purpose, point of view, and structure, as you boil down just to the essence of your answers to those questions, let's just go forward again and remind you, in your final essay, that's the way it's going to look. It's only going to be 17% here at the top. It's only going to be 17% of your word count is purpose, point of view, and structure. So use those questions as thought starters. That's the key. Now, we come to this next section, the body of your essay, and let's go back and see what that looks like. Okay, here comes substance and strategy. Remember that whenever an author is presenting an argument, they're going to present examples. That's the substance. And the strategy is to think critically about, why does the author present those examples? Remember, when you're building an argument, you're building what's called a case for your own ideas, just like a lawyer defending a particular position or a client in a court of law. You're going to select certain details, certain facts, certain concepts, certain examples. That will be your substance. And you'll present them in a strategic way in the hopes of convincing the jury. The same thing here, as you can see it as it's written here. What main ideas, what supporting details, what authorities, statistics, facts, opinions, representative examples, images, etc., are employed by the author? Think of that for Hillary Rosen. What examples does she give us? Now, this is really the key here. Here it's necessary to be very specific in your observations. As you're reading, carefully isolate particularly important quotations to later use in your written analysis. Okay? As we see when we look at the final page of this document, we have quotations carefully spaced throughout the formalist analysis essay. You're not hovering near the text, you're citing from the text. Now, within the context of the author's purpose, point of view, and structure, consider the substantial ingredients of the text and ask yourself why these specific substantial ingredients are employed. What is the author's strategy? What is their function in the overall whole of the work? Okay, it's really important that you don't simply say, Hillary Rosen claims that we have created a special group to help young people. And she's also stated that we've also created this. Those are just factual observations. Yes, it's true. She's mentioned those things. But why does she mention those things? Why does she give that example? What's she hoping to argue from that? What's she trying to convince you of? Why is she presenting that? What sort of evidence is that really, if you think deeply about it? So for example, in her essay, when she says that selecting an artist for in the music industry is actually a very complex and deep challenge for people in the music industry. Um, well, an opponent would simply look at that and say, well, is it really? Or is the music industry all about money? And isn't it true that extremes sell? You've got to think critically about that. Don't just accept it. Think critically. It may be true. What she's saying may be totally valid. But think the way a prosecutor and a defense attorney would think. Try to think critically. Now, these observations will inevitably constitute the bulk of your labor, roughly 65%. So if we just go down and take a look at our final page again there you can see in red font those quotations that you've highlighted in your text. Now remember, for your upcoming in-class essay, you will be allowed to choose any essay that you like from the hip hop reader. And you can even go from the course back that I've shared with you from Rosen's essay, if you like, from the music and culture text. That's fine as well. You will be able to select an article of your choice, but once you've done that, you'll have to prepare a page of notes in advance, and those significant quotations will already be selected by you. So in the in-class essay, there'll essentially be no thinking involved. You've already thought about purpose. You've already thought about point of view. You've already thought about structure. You've already got your quotations ready to go. That's all done in the page of notes that you're allowed to prepare for the upcoming in-class. So let's go back now and just see how this is going to unfold. So here you're going to, reading carefully, you're going to isolate those particularly important quotations to use. And as you can see from the diagram, this is going to be the bulk of your labor, is the 65%. Now, after you've finished your essay, your conclusion is basically going to be overall effect and specific value of the text. Just a few sentences, that's all. And those are fairly straightforward. In the light of your answers for overall effect, in the light of your answers to categories 1 to 5, try to clearly answer the question, what is the overall effect of the author's text? Now, sometimes that's not that simple. For example, you might agree with an author's thesis, and you might agree with some of the points that the author presents, but some of the other points you might find are really off topic or quite manipulative. So you might say as overall effect that the author's argument as a whole seems to be sound. However, an opponent could easily be concerned about or could puncture this argument by looking at how the author presents points 3 and 4, for example. So the overall effect, or it might be a fabulous overall effect where it all works together perfectly. That's for you to decide here very concisely. And then the specific value. What's the value of the text? Has the author been successful? Are the ideas of lasting value, for example, with Rosen and the music industry? Is it of lasting value, this idea that music cannot cause action? Has she convinced you of this? If so, that's great. If not, then be clear about it. So that's what you do for the reading portion. Now you're going to have your notes ready to go, a single page of notes. And those notes, let me just go to our final diagram here for a second. The single page of notes that you're going to be allowed to have during the in-class is going to look like what you see on the screen right now. Point form, not written out in complete sentences. You'll have some point form observations regarding purpose, point of view, and structure. Then you'll have your quotations literally written down, ready to go. And you'll have some point form observations regarding why you think it's significant. Notice here, this is significant because. Here the author is. The fallacy in this assertion. This is important because. These facts are really opinions. This is significant because. The writer's logic here. All of these quotations are quotations you have selected because there's something interesting about them. You think they're important, they help the author's argument. Perhaps you think the logic is faulty. There's something positive or negative, something that you want to say about that quotation. It's not just a statement of facts. This is where you're going to do your critical thinking. So let's go back now and let's take a look at how we're going to approach this. So here we are on page 3. So how to apply the 7 categories. A preliminary note regarding audience and essential context. So this is important. What do you need to include in your essay? Determining your audience is important. For our purposes, assume that your student is your reader is a student coming into this course next term. So that student is going to read this essay as well. So the student has read the text once. That, for example, Hillary Rosen's "It's Easy But Wrong to Blame the Music." The student has read the text once, but the student has not heard any lectures on the text, nor participated in critical class discussions of the text. Your job is to educate him or her. You must teach the text to your student audience. Notice that emphasis. You are the educator. You are the teacher. You are the one who has to show the critical thinking and move through the text and illuminate that text, help the student see what's really going on. Just like with your research paper, your job is to present your argument like a conference paper, taking public responsibility for it, and to educate your first-year conference audience, your classmates that are listening to you deliver your paper. Same thing here. Your job is to educate. You must teach the text. Now, second bullet. Also, when writing your analysis essay, it's important to develop a sense of the essential context your readers, auditors require. Because your audience has read the text once, you do not need to summarize what happens in the text or repeat obvious facts. Instead, think deeply. This is the key now. Instead, think deeply and make sophisticated connections for your audience. Show them how the author achieves his or her purpose. As you do this, it's especially important that your discussions of categories 1 to 3 be concise and act as essential context for your more detailed discussions of categories 4 and 5. Don't integrate quotations into your introductory paragraph. Cite your selected quotations later in your sequential analysis. And notice the font here, bold font. The key is to not get bogged down in categories 1 to 3. Instead, use them to sketch clear, concise, essential context. Once this is done, really dig into categories 4 and 5, 65%. Okay, so let's remember let's visualize that. Here's your introduction. Purpose, point of view, and structure. It is concise. It's only 17% of your word count. Don't get bogged down. Don't start putting quotations in this opening section. It's all in your own voice, a clear statement of purpose, point of view, and structure. Now we're going to get on to the second part, the bulk of your essay, the 65%. Okay? So let's go back and see how that's going to work now. So, step A, you're going to begin your essay with a general introduction to the text under consideration. And you'll see how this works when I read the samples in a few minutes. Begin your essay with a general introduction to the text under consideration, for example, title and author, and naturally progress. Now, I'm going to use the word in this lecture, natural, in several places. It's only natural that you need to identify the text and the author and the purpose to help the reader have focus. Title and author, and naturally progress into a discussion of purpose. Without this context, your essay will be unfocused. You need this foundation. For example, in his article, The Economic Origins of Canada, John Black argues that without the beaver, there would have been no Canada as we currently know it. His purpose is to persuade us that, and then we go on. Use the word purpose. Make it clear that this is his thesis. This is why he or she, this is why the author is writing. Use the word purpose, okay? Step B, next, make a natural transition. Okay, there's nothing awkward about this. It's only natural that we would do this. Make a natural transition into a discussion of point of view and structure. For example, after step A, you might say something like the following. As an expert historian. Now notice that, an expert historian. Let's go back. Where did that come from? When we look at point of view here, here's our first page. Here's all the questions that we have for point of view. We use those questions as thought starters. And what do we boil it down to? We boil it down to 4 words. And here's the 4 words right here. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, here we go. Here's the 4 words right here. As an expert historian. All of those thought starters for point of view. The bottom line, boiling it down to its essence, as an expert historian. The second thing is structure. So here we go. As an expert historian, Black structures his text in a very effective manner. But what does that mean specifically, very effective? We need to be specific, so we're going to clarify. Using a comparison and contrast pattern of organization, he begins by, and then we quickly describe what that structure looks like. So there we've got purpose, point of view, and structure in a very concise intro, as you can see on your screen, about 4 sentences. That's it. Now comes the natural transition. Now comes the bulk of your essay. Making a natural transition from purpose, point of view, and structure, begin your sequential analysis of substance and strategy. So sequential analysis, as I mentioned earlier, simply means that you follow the sequence of the original text. You don't start with the conclusion, then jump back to the intro, then go to paragraph 11, then to paragraph 4. No, you move from paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. You move in a sequential analysis of substance and strategy. The author is presenting the material in that order for a reason. The author, Hillary Rosen, wants to first give you her first image for a strategic reason. The second information she gives you is for a strategic reason. The third for a strategic reason. You can't just mix up the order. She's giving it to you in that order for a reason, trying to shape your thinking, trying to pull you in and convince you of something. So that's the sequential analysis, okay? As it says here, here you must integrate the important quotations you isolated while carefully reading. And you can see those in the final page that I've shown you with the red font. Very importantly, don't hover near the text, constantly paraphrasing. Instead, penetrate it by integrating quotations using MLA format. This will make your analysis vivid. Now, really important here, don't just summarize the obvious. Instead, deeply reflect upon the essay you're analyzing and make sophisticated connections for your audience. Show them how the author attempts to achieve his or her purpose. Use your critical thinking skills in your analysis and evaluate the author's substance and strategy. Are the examples used, comparisons made, and so forth logical, or is the reader being manipulated in some way? Does the author use fallacies, which are oversimplifications or evasions, as you see described in your little brown and in the test you've taken? This is very important. You must not just describe what is there. You must think about why it's there, the analysis of substance and strategy, and you'll see that in the sample essays. So that's 65%. That's the body of your essay. Now, what does that look like? Let's take a look right here. After we've created our introduction, here's the beginning of our first body paragraph. So as you look at this one here, let's just go up here for a second. Here's our introductory paragraph. In his article, etc., as an expert historian, structure. That's our brief intro. Now we're going to move to the body of the essay. And that's what you see right here. This is going to be the beginning of the body of the essay right here. So let's go back and take a look at what that looks like and see how simple it is. This is your first body paragraph. Black begins his article by presenting us with a vivid scene of the isolation and hardship experienced by the first French trappers in the St. Lawrence region. He notes that, and here comes the quotation, the winters were so harsh that the trappers referred to them as white hells. Now, notice here, this is MLA format, and we're using the paragraph number in the text. I would like you to do that. Use the paragraph number. Notice that we have quotation marks around the author's original words. Always, you must have quotation marks around quotations. They can never just be brought into your own text as if you are summarizing or they're your own words. That is plagiarism. So here he notes that there's your quotation mark. And at the end here, there's your quotation mark. And here's your citation, MLA format, bracket with the paragraph number. Now you don't want to just leave it at that. Why is this important? This is significant because. So this is the substance. And here comes your analysis of the strategy. Why is this important? Why does he refer to them as white hells? What is it he's trying to argue? And you keep doing that. You just keep on doing that, following that pattern, just like you see here. Move right through the essay. First quotation, substance, strategy. Second quotation in red, and then strategy. Third quotation, there's your substance, strategy. Substance, strategy. Substance, strategy, all the way through. That's the body of your essay. You're analyzing how the author is trying to convince you of their purpose. Once you get to the end of that, to finish off your essay, as it says here, with the bulk of your analysis completed, here you should make a natural transition into a concise discussion of overall effect. And there you see it, very simply. The overall effect of Black's article is impressive. By carefully comparing and contrasting the experiences of the first trappers with the first missionaries, he produces a text which, etc. And then a final statement of the value of the text. Black has successfully captured the spirit of a period in Canadian history that otherwise would seem very unreal to us. Okay, so that's the basic theory. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to create an essay where we're analyzing an author's substance and strategy. We will begin the essay by stating the purpose. We'll then talk about the point of view and how it's structured. That is essential context. Now we know what we're getting into. Then we'll begin a sequential analysis, moving through the essay step by step, analyzing. Now, as you're analyzing, you might agree with everything an author says. You might think that Rosen is wonderful, that it's all perfect. If that's the case, then explain why you think those quotations are so forceful, why you think that evidence really is convincing. You don't have to attack or discredit an argument or dismantle it. You might find an argument is wonderful, extremely forceful, no problem. But you still have to think critically. Explain to the reader. Remember, you're teaching the text. Explain to the reader why you think that's such a strong example, or why those statistics are so convincing, etc. Okay? And then your concise overall effect at the end here. So now, let me leave this diagram on the board that we see right now. And I want to read to you 2 sample essays. As I read through these essays, think about how the author is very effectively using the pattern that you see here. When I'm marking your papers, I want to see purpose, point of view, and structure mentioned. If you leave one of those out, that's something that I can't mark. So that's marks lost by omission. So here we go. This first essay is on Bell Hooks's essay, The Coolness of Being Real. In her essay, The Coolness of Being Real, Bell Hooks presents the argument that gangster rap has dissolved the emotional and spiritual complexity of Black males. Hooks is a leading scholar in the areas of race and feminism. She presents some compelling insight, but her entire argument seems to be based off of personal opinion, and it is littered with faulty logic. Hooks contrasts the strength of the blues with the weaknesses and stigma that cripple and surround gangster rap. Hooks uses a lot of repetition throughout her essay by continually displaying the negatives of gangster rap while barely mentioning any of the positives to give validity to her argument. From the very beginning of Hooks's work, her bias is extremely noticeable. Hooks claims, quote, if every young black male in America simply studied the history, the life, and work of Black blues musicians, they would have blueprints for healing and survival, unquote. This is the start of Hooks showing her love for the blues, and immediately following this statement, she praises B.B. King, a true gentleman of the blues. But what about all the other artists that penetrated this genre? There are plenty of raunchy blues artists that would not appeal to Hooks or live up to the standards imposed throughout her essay. Although B.B. King is a great example of healing and survival, he does not represent the entire genre, nor every Black musician from the past. As the essay progresses, more of Hooks's personal opinions seem to surface, as she claims, quote, "Gangster rap invites Black males to adopt a cool pose, to front and fake it, to mask true feelings. The blues was an invitation to Black men to be vulnerable, to express true feelings, to break open their hearts and expose them," unquote. She makes the blues out to be emotional and caring while displaying strong feminist themes. She makes gangster rap out to be much more aggressive and narcissistic, with themes of absolute masculinity and animalism. This stark contrast between rap and the blues is continuously used because it upholds Hooks's feminist views. This creates an eyesore throughout the essay because her ideologies become exposed. Beyond Hooks's ideologies being exposed, the language she uses in describing the blues is much like a woman who is describing her type of man. She desires men who are emotional and not afraid to expose their hearts, while having a strong disdain for men who possess the traits highlighted in gangster rap. Moving away from bias in Hooks's work, the second biggest problem with her essay begins to appear, namely faulty logic. Hooks claims that, quote, hip-hop is packaged for mainstream consumption. Many of its primary themes reflect the ruling values of imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy, unquote. This is significant because it shows Hooks's bias against capitalism, but also shows her failure to piece things together. Hooks and others can make the argument all day that capitalism is built on greed and is a cancer in our world. That topic has been beaten to death. But she cannot disagree that out of capitalism grows entrepreneurship. And this avenue of self-employment provides an escape route for those living in the ghettos of America. Entrepreneurship gives anyone the opportunity to climb the ladder of success and escape from the class system that has them imprisoned. With this idea in mind, it is now important to analyze Hooks's claim that, quote, when hip-hop culture provides a blueprint for Black male salvation, we can value it, as many of us value civil rights struggle, unquote. This is crucial because although the civil rights movement was a peace-based protest, it was still a protest. Therefore, it was met with hostility from the opposition. The tragic murder of Martin Luther King Jr. and other supporters of this admirable movement caused difficulty for the message they were conveying to continue. This message needed a new outlet to be heard from. With the death of segregation and the introduction of institutional racism, the last thing New Era civil rights activists needed were the halls of another institution to preach from. This is something Hooks seems to ignore when comparing hip-hop culture and the civil rights struggle. Gangster rap had become the new preaching grounds for civil rights and continued the movement right where it left off. Even though it was first met with the same hostility as the civil rights movement, soon some of these artists were making progress in breaking down institutional racism throughout the music industry. In a twist of events, the white patriarchal capitalist system that was keeping African Americans suppressed was now in fact being used for their salvation. Further into the essay, Hooks makes the claim that, quote, Creating beauty through art has been one of the most powerful ways individual black males have chosen to recover themselves, to declare their essential humanity, unquote. This has significance because Hooks is right. Art is one of the most powerful forms of recovery. But what she fails to realize is that the beauty she is defining is different in everyone's eyes. For Hooks, gangster rap is a vile music genre, but it is still a form of self-expression and can be part of the healing process for certain people. Not everyone is optimistic and has a positive outlook. The negatives portrayed in gangster rap are often realities of the artist, and this expression of their reality can be a part of recovery for the artist, but also for the audience. Hooks then ends her argument with the most ironic of statements. She claims, quote, "Right now in our nations, not enough adult black males chart the path to healthy self-esteem for younger black males. That path requires self-acceptance, assuming accountability, letting go of the politics of blame, telling the truth, and being positive," unquote. This statement has importance because although she's giving sound advice, it is strategically placed at the end of her argument to take away from the negativity she tossed around towards rap in her previous paragraphs. There is also irony in her saying to let go of the politics of blame because her entire argument is laying blame on gangster rap. If she wants to lay blame on anything, it should be the environment that influences this genre. Hooks presents some very compelling insight, but once you start reading between the lines, it's easy to see the text is littered with bias. While expressing her thesis, she only presents gangster rap in a negative context, and it gives light to her feminist views. Much of the essay sounds like a rant about her disgust for certain types of men because of a bad experience she had with one in the past. It is fairly easy to see she has not accomplished her intended purpose, but rather left a bitter taste in the mouth of the reader. Okay, so there you can see a very interesting analysis of Bell Hooks's essay, The Coolness of Being Real. The author gives a clear statement of purpose, point of view, and structure. The author then moves through a very careful, significant analysis of substance and strategy. Notice that after each quotation the author presents, she really digs in and really analyzes what is the significance of this quotation. She's got some real discussion going on there. That's the important thing for your essays. That's what's going to separate the A-range papers from the B's and the C's, is that clear discussion of the significance, the strategy, really digging in, and then a very concise conclusion as we just saw. Now, let's take a look at one final example to hopefully make this theory concrete for you. Let's look at Hillary Rosen's essay, It's Easy But Wrong to Blame the Music, and I'm going to read you a sample of a very good paper. Now, if you agreed with Hillary Rosen, it'll be interesting to hear this paper because this student has some serious questions about her logic and reasoning in this text. So it's not a question of right or wrong, it's just a question of critical thinking skills and trying to really get to the heart of the matter. So here we go, and watch the diagram that you see on the board in front of you. Look how the student is moving through purpose, point of view, structure. Look how she presents her quotations. Look at how she digs in with phrases like this is significant, or here the author is, or this is important. Notice how she's really digging in and then pulls it together at the end. So here we go. In her essay, It's Easy But Wrong to Blame the Music, Hillary Rosen strives to inform and persuade us that music, although powerful, cannot and does not cause violence, but simply serves as an outlet and way of perpetuating emotion that is already present. As a high-ranking industry professional with first-hand experience in the business, Rosen mixes facts with somewhat reasoned opinions, though a bias is strongly evident. A powerful use of cause and effect holds Rosen's argument together, covering up her bias to the average reader. Her essay, written in 1999 in the wake of the Columbine shootings, starts by defending the music industry accused of encouraging such violence. Quote, "The music industry suffers these emotions with the rest of America. We want to be a part of the solution," unquote. Noting that Rosen is the chief executive officer of the recording industry of America, we immediately understand that her essay is working to cover all of the industry's bases. Because the industry can only be a part of the solution, it can only be a part of the problem. Where in fact the industry fails to admit the startling impact music has on the world's population. Music is the voice of the people. Humans sing about what they feel and experience. If these experiences are so powerful, so is the music. Rosen attempts to counteract this fact, saying, quote, "It's true that most controversial lyrics in popular music reflect the violence and despair in an artist's imagination or in society, but they reflect it. They don't create it," unquote. If this is the case, Rosen is also claiming that the indulging and perpetuating of emotions does not lead to a significant buildup of emotion, resulting in action. In fact, she says that, quote, "music cannot cause action," unquote. This is true. Music alone cannot cause action, for correlation does not equal cause. The fallacy she has committed, however, is that she does not admit that correlation is just as significant as other social factors. Rosen continues to defend the industry's choice to promote and sell violence-driven music when she says that, quote, "Even if you can succeed in banning the music, you won't ban the angst or anger. You will just guarantee it one less outlet," unquote. Right here, she has failed to see a gaping hole in her argument. She has just admitted that music has the power to serve as an outlet, and without the outlet, the anger will still be present. Is it not true that the music only spreads this message to a mass audience, sparking the thoughts and actions of others? No, the music is not the cause, but it is a huge contributing factor. Despite the freedom of speech and expression argument, Rosen also fails to explain how the industry benefits financially by producing controversial artists. Extremes sell. Money is the reason the industry got involved in the first place. It is admirable that Rosen goes on to admit that the industry, quote, "should be and wants to be a part of this important dialogue on violence, but we should not serve as a false solution," unquote. But unfortunately, this counteracts her previous arguments of the profound positive effects music has had on young people. She speaks of programs such as Rock the Vote and Drug Free America, which use music as a positive social force. This is a wonderful concept, but all throughout the article up until this point, music is said to be neutral, not able to cause violence. If this is the case, music cannot cause positive evolution in society. Yes, it may be a background contributing factor, but the industry's claims of the aid they have already bestowed on the young completely contradicts everything Rosen stated previously, and even directly afterwards. Upon first glance, Rosen's essay appears to be a well-researched, persuasive view of the music industry's innocence in these tough situations. After closer examination, though, some of the arguments presented are contradictory. Without these fallacies, and maybe giving more credit to the power of music, the sentiments of this essay could be of lasting value. Okay, so there you have it in the lecture. You've got an explanation of the theory, and you've got two samples of practice, two sample essays. Please remember that in the in-class essay, you'll be able to create a page of preparatory notes, point form notes as described in the syllabus, regarding purpose, point of view, and structure. they should be a very small section of your page of notes, just like you see here visually on the screen. You're also allowed to prepare the significant quotations you want to use in your in-class essay, and you're allowed to have point form notes regarding the significance or the critical thinking you want to apply to those particular quotations. And a very concise, small number of notes at the bottom here regarding overall effect and specific value. Okay, so you've learned how to create arguments, you've learned how to produce a productive, persuasive research paper, and now you understand how to write a formalist analysis, how to analyze, critically think about someone else's argument, just like in a court of law, looking at the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses, the thinking involved, the purpose and strategy that an author is using. And that will be your next essay for in class, and that will be your final exam. So in the remainder of this class and of our future classes, we're going to start practicing for the in class, and we'll go forward from there. I hope that you found this lecture beneficial. I wish you good health.